Three, two, one, and we are live. Welcome once again to HeroQuest fans. So we're streaming on a different day today, just because due to my schedule kind of filling up last minute, I might have to cancel our Friday and Saturday streams. I do plan to be doing the Rantcast on Thursday night, 9 p.m. Central Standard Time with The Strange Bus on Twitch. But there's a whole flurry of HeroQuest news, and I wanted to cover it rather than waiting like a whole another week to do it. So if you've been following, shout out to everybody that's been covering this news: Amalgamash, Sir Deathvids, Always Bored Never Boring, lots of other people, all the folks in the Discord, talking about the Avalon Hill Discord, and also our own HeroQuest fans Discord. So anyway, yeah, we're looking at Discord at the moment, but I want to go and hop on over to Yield In. So this is one of the pictures that was posted on Reddit, but I'll get to that in a moment. Let's just change over the page here. Okay, hopefully you can see that. Yep. All right. So first thing, well, this wasn't first. Here we are. Okay. So I started a new thread over on Yield In about the ElfQuest pack. I keep calling it EQP, that stands for ElfQuest pack, because let's face it, it's a remake of the 1992 expansion, ElfQuest pack, also called Mage of the Mirror. And like the Frozen Horror remake before it, they're just going to be calling it Mage of the Mirror, as we know. Anyway, they've officially put up the product page on Hasbro Pulse for this particular item for pre-order, February 1st, 2023. So forget all this March, April stuff that we were guessing about before when they said spring. Apparently it's February 1st, so they moved it up. $44.99, so same price as the Frozen Horror. They have pictures of everything, so it looks pretty decent, but it is pre-order. So I'm just going to go ahead and look at some of the other stuff here. So, as we know, of course, we've said it before a million times, it's going to be the male elf is the red plastic hero figure. And the design and the pose and everything is based on the original 1992 artwork, where he's holding like kind of a curved short sword, and he's got a shield with like a spike in the center of it. Now, on the cover art, they've changed it so that it's the female elf from the remake game system. You know, she's the one with she's like wearing the partial plate armor or whatever, except she's got the curved sword and the spike shield. But actually, the figure inside is a male elf. But I think that's great because they gave us the female elf as the default for the game system in the new series. But then you still get the male elf, and he's got a unique and really cool pose, which I think is the right way to do it. The artwork for the elf cards has been revealed, and it shows the female game system elf on there. Now we haven't seen the other side of the cards. We saw the front of some of the cards at Gen Con, not PulseCon, but Gen Con, in those photos that were posted some time ago. But now we're seeing the backs of the cards. So let's take a look at some of these pictures. So they released kind of the usual introduction. In this, the Mage of the Mirror expansion to the HeroQuest adventure, you're challenged to confront the diabolical Archmage Sinestra and save the kidnapped princess Melandriel. As a courageous elf, will you survive the perilous solo quest to prove your strength and valor? You must recover a legendary sword, free 2 of the queen's attendants, and navigate safely through a treacherous maze. Only then will your fellow heroes join you to pass through the mirror to the realm of reflection and try to free the princess. Immerse yourself in the fantasy with 10 daring quests, stunning artwork, 33 detailed miniatures, and full-color tiles. Requires HeroQuest game system to play, sold separately. This game has limitless replayability, and you can also create your own quests and stories, gather friends, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So not a lot of surprises there. And similar to the Frozen Horror, this is one of those quests where I consider it to have been broken back in the day. Not a lot of people got to actually buy it because it was just kind of there and it was gone. Same with the Frozen Horror. People saw it in the little flyers included with Keller's Keep Return of the Witch Lord, but not a lot of people got it. And a lot of kids were disappointed because they mailed in their coupon to buy it, and then they got a letter back saying this is no longer in production. So scalpers, had a paradise with it because it's one of the most sought after and expensive. And in fact, I think it is the most expensive HeroQuest product that you can find these days. I mean, there have been some absurd price hikes on some of these items, but generally, consistently, it's been the most expensive one. So if you've got it, especially if you bought it in the last couple of years, you're pretty lucky. But anyway, yeah. Here we go. So $44.99 pre-order. So let's look at some of these pictures here. So they showed close-ups of the quest book. So there's what I was talking about with they inserted the female elf. They've changed up some of the artwork as expected, but not as much as you would think. One thing about Sinestra is she was portrayed as kind of a crone, kind of an older elf, but she looks like really young here. And she's got I call them the donkey ears or the rabbit ears instead of the Spock ears for the elves. Now they show the ogres here like looking kind of small, but was true of the original as well. And they're holding all these different weapons, but actually in the game they only have the axe because this is not against the ogre horde, so you don't have the variant ogres. They're all the same. So there's the elf spell, like I was telling you. Very similar, except it's the female elf with her armor. Same number of cards, 8 to pick from. So if you're an aficionado, you know all this stuff already. And there's the monster cards. I noticed they're showing just the backs here, just to kind of tantalize you, or maybe because they're making changes last minute. So the monsters would be the giant wolves, the ogres, the elven archers, the elven warriors, or elven swordsmen, whatever you want to call them. So that's 4. And what's the 5th one? Forgetting something. Let's look down here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do they have a card for Sinestra? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, maybe I miscounted there. I was thinking that there'd only be those 4. This time there's no mercenaries, but we'll get into that later. The question of can we use mercenaries or not? I mean, you can do whatever you want in your game, right? There's a bunch of dread spells, formerly chaos spells, of course. We can only guess that those are the same as before. The artifacts. Some of those artifacts in the original version were a little vague because they'll say this allows the elf to do such and such. It has Elven in the title, but it doesn't say anything else. Whereas some of them specifically say may only be used by an elf. I mean, you can imagine just because an elf made something doesn't mean only an elf can use it. But some of the items were clearly intended only to be used by the elf, and others just say elf in them. Of course, you wonder, well, what if the elf wants to give it to another hero? What if the elf dies and somebody picks it up? What happens? So yeah, so it looks like there are 5 monster cards. There might be a Sinestra card this time. I'm not sure there would need to be, but there could be. I got the 4 extra treasure cards to mix in. Got the artifacts, equipment. Now these equipment cards are new, and that's just because this is following the convention of taking the Alchemist Shop potions, because every one of these quest packs had 4 extra potions in the North American releases. So those would all become artifact cards once again. Now they've never answered the question of whether you can sell potions back to the armory for half price, or to the alchemist shop for half price. I mean, I guess you think, well, maybe the alchemist shop doesn't take returns, but the armory does. So maybe there's a house rule in there somewhere. Of course, if the potion is unused, why would it? Does it have an expiration date? All sales are final? Not sure. So all the tiles look pretty much the same. Now you'll notice that they've given you another staircase. Copied from the game system, and that's true of the original as well. Some more of these extra blocks, expecting there'll be more trap doors, or secret doors, pit traps, single block, double block. Now these trapdoors featured in Keller's Keep Return of the Witch Lord, but you can't assume that people have that one if you're buying it. You really can't assume. Now they do say in the Alchemist shop that if you have other Alchemist shops from other expansions, you can still buy stuff between quests from there. But that's what it is. I noticed that they only have 3 of these like loot piles, these backpack piles. This is supposed to be, so spoilers, in this quest pack you can get turned into a werewolf under certain conditions, and yes, there's ways that you can not be a werewolf anymore by using certain potions. But when you get turned into a werewolf, you drop all your gear, and your gear appears as one of these little tiles. And you use a wolf head tile to move you around. Which, come to think of it, I'm not sure, did they do those wolf tiles or not? I don't see any wolf tiles. I wonder if they're still going to use them, or if they expect you to use a plastic figure. Like you suddenly take up 2 squares. But anyway, because there's evil werewolves too that you fight. But anyway, there's only 3 of these. So, okay, you can imagine there's, this is a bow, there's a sword, there's an axe. But where's the one for the wizard? I mean, the wizard, the only weapons he can use are like staff and daggers. So where's his? Or is it just going to be a copy of one of these existing ones? I don't know. Obviously, these white backgrounds aren't there because there'd be black squares around these. The little girl, she's supposed to be 5 years old. She looks like she might be older. Of course, it's hard to tell with elves. How old are they really? But in the original, she's 5 years old. Now, this is a big cardboard platform here, of course. So as we knew, there's plastic variants of the furniture. So new bookcases, a new tomb, which from this angle, it almost looks much more like the one from the original game system from 8990, which would be cool if it was. In other words, it's like a stone effigy of an elf-looking guy rather than like a classic medieval knight in full armor. And we've got the 3 treasure chests. They look like they're covered in like vines or tentacles or something. Same thing with this throne. It looks like it's got little antlers on it. There's, of course, the hero. We've seen some of this stuff before. It's just this is a different angle. Now, it was clarified for us that these ogres are indeed gray. Unfortunately, they're not going to be kind of that cornflower blue, that bluish gray color that they were in the 92 version. And they've also had their body points reduced to 5 instead of 10, which will make them easier to fight. Of course, you could always double the number of ogres if you really wanted to give it the same challenge, or just say they've got 10 body points if you're Zargon. And they did increase the number of these elven warriors, of course, which led to me speculating that maybe you could hire some of them as mercenaries. We don't know for sure. But, of course, there's 4 swordsmen now instead of just 2. So there's male and female versions, and they take right and left-handed poses. The giant wolves, everybody notices this little surfboard that they're on, because originally they were supposed to take up 2 squares. They still do, but they've given it more of a vertical, so it's maybe not hanging off the piece as much, so it'll be easier to fit them on the board. I think that's already been commented on many times. These ogres don't look bad. It's kind of a different design. The original, they were holding these clubs. They have kind of studs poking out of them, but now they've got axes, and it looks like they've got a mohawk. So they actually look like one of the other ogres. I want to say it was the ogre champion, or not the ogre champion. The ogre. Well, I guess it would be a new one, because I think the ogre champion had an axe, but the ogre chieftain had a mohawk haircut. So, but anyway, it's a combination of different designs, and he looks pretty cool. He looks like a tough guy. I noticed the return of these plain plastic bases. So you remember in the original game, you had to put the cardboard into these little U-shaped plastic bases, but they gave you 2 of them, and the reason for that is pretty obvious. It's going to be for these cardboard mirrors, because the mirror has to change the bow, and then you take the bow and it's the reflection of the princess, and then she's gone. Spoilerific spoilers. So yeah, if you bought like 10 or 11 of these, you could print your own cardboard and then use cardboard doors again if you wanted. But the portcullises are pretty cool, so those are in plastic. The brown exit door and the iron entrance door. So they've given these a wildly different design. So in the Frozen Horror, they kind of put like the Frozen Horror's face on it, and then they put, instead of a skull or whatever, and then they put like ice and snow. Here it looks like they've completely redesigned them. So I like the fact that they're making it different. It's not just the same thing every time. It's repeated or just a different color. Makes it unique. So you've got all this bonus furniture. Now the original version of Mage of the Mirror wouldn't have had all this extra furniture, but the new Alchemist bench looks pretty cool, pretty detailed. The fireplace looks different. It's got a fire in there, and it almost looks like a circular mirror instead of that portrait of King Angry or whoever you want it to be. So you can easily print something out and put it right there as a picture or paint it. Get some of those Malto chrome pens and color that in, or just take a piece of aluminum foil and glue it on there so that it looks like an actual mirror, reflective mirror. Got a weapons rack with these ornate looking weapons. Kind of reminds me of those Weta Workshop designs that they put into the Lord of the Rings to give to the elves. Like they had these really ornate weapons, stylish, like ceremonial stuff. Here you've got the elven archers, and again, male and female versions, so opposite ends. These look like they're just copied and pasted. So there's the sky orb, so it's just a bunch of tiles once again. Not a whole lot to say about these. We've seen all this stuff before, it's kind of itemized for us just to show that this is what it is. It looks like all the pieces are light blue, except for the ogres are gray, the hero is red. And of course Sinestra right there. She looks younger, more spindly, taller. I mean, she's standing straight up. She isn't kind of like hunched over. She isn't a crone. Alright, so let's get out of this one. There's the box art again. Very detailed. So there you can see the giant wolf, Sinestra. This would have been more like the old style ogre with the spiked club, but he's not in the game at all. It's too bad they didn't do a variant. Of course, there's only 4 ogres. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. Yeah, that wouldn't happen. And then, yeah, she looks like she's like hunching down, and she's still as tall as this guy. So the ogres are supposed to be huge. But you know, the artwork, it's a tribute to the original artwork as opposed to necessarily a true representation of the game itself. Of course, you could paint these any way you wanted. It's still a cool bit of box art. And then here's the back of it. Now, it was pointed out, I think it was Hispazargon shared, the German version looks different than this. So here it just says contents, quest book, featuring 10 quests, 33 finely detailed miniatures, 2 mirror stands, 35 game cards. And the 5 game cards would be the 4 Alchemist Shop potions and then 1 hero card for the new male elf. And then the 30 that would have been in the original. Cardboard tile sheet requires HeroQuest game system to play, sold separately. So the German version, instead of just telling you the storyline and showing a giant picture of Sinestra like this, illustrated, which, I mean, this looks cool. It actually has, let's just take a look. It's more similar to the, whoops, I'm going to show you that later. It's more similar to the Frozen Horror one. So check this out. So here, Die Spiegel Magieren, a Bentwerpack. So my German is not so good, but yeah. So here you got the picture of all the figures, and the hero is right there. You've got the X2, 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 X3. You know, telling you how many are in the box. 4 of these portcullises. 2 doors, all the furniture's together, so you see what you're getting in that delicious chocolate. Just kidding. Just kind of looks like chocolate. And it's in a candy tray too, so alright? Know what I'm saying? Tuesday Gamer. Okay, so we've looked at that. Now this is just more posed stuff. So we've got all the cards again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, well maybe that other one was just a mock-up. 1, 2, 3, 4. This only looks like 4 monster cards. So Elven Archer, Elven Swordsman or Warrior, Ogre, Giant Wolf. And then the 5th card is actually the hero card. That's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34. Okay, I don't know. Something's missing somewhere. So they might have goofed up when they did the mock-up. Now, when they show these tiles in this picture, it's interesting because these look like they're like on thicker board. I mean, look how thick they are. They're just like really tall. That could be just, it's a computer rendering, or are they experimenting with different materials? Are they trying to make it thicker? Because, I mean, they weren't just pure cardstock. They were like cardboard. But you've got these much bigger pieces that you're going to be handling a lot potentially. So maybe they decided to make it thicker, or maybe this is not the final version. Also look at those rounded corners. I guess the other one had rounded corners too. I mean, if they do use new material, that's fine. That'd be an easy way to tell them apart from the others. Now, the reason they did that is probably because you have this big board. It's kind of like a miniature GM screen to create the room, like the original. You got a big flat board for the floor and then a thing for the wall, and you got to bend that. Of course, I think you only use that in the last 2 quests. So it's not going to be used as much as the game screen. And of course, there you go with the cardboard tiles inserted into the bases to form the mirrors. You can see the relative sizes of everything. The ogres are big, but not absurdly so. And that's true of the original. It's too bad, though, because in the original version, the ogres had to be assembled, and so you could turn their heads like to the side, and you could also move their arms up and down. Like they had a little bit of posability. Of course, now they're just one solid piece, so they've just got one pose. They look pretty decent. Not quite as fun-loving. I mean, they kind of looked like mutant orcs, in my opinion, in the original. Some people didn't like the Games Workshop design of the ogres. It kind of grew on me. But yeah, these look like physical pieces as opposed to like CGI mock-ups. So, but I mean, we knew it was done as far as Gen Con goes. Of course, as far as we know, inside that quest book, it's just blank. They might still be working on that. They might still be working on some of the cards. Of course, a lot of them were seen at Gen Con. Of course, at PulseCon, there was really no HeroQuest stuff. It was all just after the fact. But it's really cool that people reported this, so thanks to everybody that reported it. It was Eudoxio who did it, not Hispazargon. Now, he posted some other stuff, but there were several people that posted. So, and Carmine, of course. And then I had my list of errata. I'm not worried about the state of shock, because they explained that already in Into the Northlands, but there's some other things that I hope they address. Now, my speculation is that this time, since they have had more time to plan, and the fact that they changed the ogre body points makes me think that this time they might actually have the errata inside the box, either as a separate sheet or maybe as an extra page inside the quest book explaining it. I could imagine that just like with Frozen Horror, they had Into the Northlands, they're going to have some intro quest for Mage of the Mirror. And it's going to be a solo quest. This is, again, my prediction. And you're going to have like an animal companion again, that you can use one of those spare tiles to be have an animal companion that helps you. As to what it would be, who knows? I mean, they mentioned several animals Into the Northlands, so it could be a bird or a horse or anything, a deer, maybe a wolf again, or a lion, or saber-tooth snow tiger. Could be anything. So it would help the hero, and that way you wouldn't be by yourself. Now, you don't have to worry as much about like yetis hugging you and stuff, but still, it's very hard. They probably would want to put in a suggestion to the elf, like if it's a brand new elf, a brand new player starting on those solo quests, to pick the either the water or the earth spells, because those are the only spells he can pick. Because he could also pick fire, air, or the elf spells, like 3 of those elf spells out of the 8. But only the water and earth would give him healing, and he really needs healing. Because normally in the game, if you decided not to pick healing spells, well, the wizard would have them, so he'd be there to heal you. But since you're on your own, maybe not. Of course, they could also give you a companion that might be able to heal you. Of course, that might be OP. You never know. But some of the other things I hope that they address, I mean, if they don't put it in the box, probably they would put it into a digital version, just like they did with Into the Northlands for the Frozen Horror. Release a supplement that you're supposed to play beforehand that gives you chances to make the quest easier by giving you more stuff. So one of the playtest or errata suggestions, this again comes from Luca Pasci's notes from the old drafts of the original Mage of the Mirror from 92, back when they were still working on it. They were going to do blind trap jumping and double jumping mechanics. These are things I've actually done in my own Twitch streams on HeroQuest fans. And by the way, thanks for joining us. This is not live on YouTube. It is live on Twitch. Anyway, the idea behind this is normally to find a trap, you got to search for traps, right? But then once you've discovered it, this square looks suspicious or the square looks dangerous, you can try to jump the square. As long as you have enough movement to get over it, just like if you're jumping a pit trap, you roll 1 combat die. If it's a skull, you fall in. If it's anything else, you jump over it successfully. So 50% chance. And if you've got the rabbit boots artifact from Return of the Witch Lord, you have to roll anything but a black shield to jump over it. So that's even better. But the idea here is, if you're suspicious of a square for any reason, you don't have to have searched at all. You can just say, I'm going to try to jump that square. Zargon's like, okay, go along with it. So what this mechanic would allow you to do is, finally, those traps that are on the other side of an open door, which are normally impossible to avoid, like you open the door, you walk through the door, and you fall into the trap, because you can't search the room until you enter the room. And once you enter the room, it's already too late. You've fallen into the trap. So you open a door, and you're like, I'm going to try to jump over that square. Now, the quest writer may have thought of that and may have put the trap on the next square or put two traps in a row. But then there was another rule that was discussed in the draft notes, which is the double jump. Now, that's different because you're jumping 2 squares at the same time. So again, you have to have even more movement left over from your movement roll to jump over 2 squares. But again, you don't have to have searched beforehand. You could just, anytime, just decide, I'm going to try to jump these 2 squares. You roll your combat die, and if it's a white shield, you're successful. If it's anything else, you land on the first square, and you take whatever consequences. Just like if you failed before. Now, if you land on a square and it's safe, well, then you just continue your movement. But your double jump requires that you get that white shield. So I think it's a cool rule. I hope that they do that. And actually, it feels like with the design of the quest, spoilers, they must have thought that these were going to be implemented in the final draft, because there's several instances where it's like there's an open door and there's 2 trap squares in. So it's like, oh, they assume that you're going to try to jump over the first square and land on the second one, or they assume you're going to try to do the double jump, and if you fail, you're going to get hurt that way. So in the base game, and in the final version of the expansion from 92, none of this blind trap jumping was mentioned at all. So you just walk through the door and you fall in every time. And some of those traps are pretty unforgiving. I mean, we're talking about, instant damage. So I guess you could use pass through rock and try to go around the door, but you can only use that once. Well, no, wait, you do have the Elven Cloak of Passage. I forgot about that. There's a treasure item called the Elven Cloak of Passage that lets you pass through rock 3 times. Of course, now it doesn't get returned to the deck, so I guess there'd be 3 rooms you could just think, they're probably going to put a trap on the other side of the door, so I'll just go through it. Go through the wall on the side and hope that I don't land in a trap. So I just put that the solo quests of extreme difficulty, so hopefully an Into the Northland style prelude quest is made to ease the unequipped beginner hero into this adventure with Animal Companion. Yeah. So I have a good feeling that if they don't include the errata playtest inside the box in some manner, they're going to do the digital thing, release a PDF online just like they did for Frozen Horror. And there's a chance that those extra elf figures could be used as hirelings, as mercenaries, or maybe as prisoners that you find. Spoilers, there is a quest where there's some archers, I believe, that fight for your side. Like, you basically free them and they fight for your side. But why did they provide so many extras? Maybe there's a case to be made that they could be used as hirelings, as mercenaries, as men-at-arms, elves-at-arms. So the war horn of command from Into the Northlands could also be used in these quests to reduce the cost of these hirelings. Now the other thing is, what if you just own the Frozen Horror and you want to take those mercenaries from that pack and use them in this one? Why not? Why couldn't they be used? So the original version didn't account for that. Of course, now they couldn't assume that you've got it, so they couldn't force you to use them, include them, or make it so hard that you need them. Of course, it's already so hard, I think you probably do need them whether you realize it or not. Elven Bracers, I mentioned, as an artifact, was never found or acquired in the regular quest book, so there's a lot of ways that you could implement it into the game. It's sorely needed. To give the elf 2 extra body points and 1 extra mind point, so increasing his maximum by wearing them, and they're not considered armor. So the question is, if they do implement it back in the game, can he wear the regular bracers and then the magical bracers on top and still get the benefit of both? Because even though they're called bracers, they really have nothing in common with the regular bracers, which just give you 1 extra defend dice. 1 extra die and defend, combat die and defend. Now, suggestions on where to give the Elven Bracers. So Phoenix's idea was, after the first quest, you just given it as a reward instead of the Elven Chainmail. But I personally think you need the Elven Chainmail. I mean, it's like Born's armor, pretty much, but it's chainmail. And it can be used by anyone except for the wizard, apparently. So there you go. It has the word Elven in the name, but still, it's not just for an elf. But maybe after completing the 3rd solo quest, because the whole point of the solo quest is to get your character fully equipped so that you can join the other 3 heroes who presumably are already high level. You know, they've got all their armor and weapons that they want, potions and everything. And you're the beginner player that has nothing. You know, you just have your short sword. So give the bracers, I would say, after quest 3 as a reward. Makes the most sense. Or you could put it in any of the unmarked treasure chests, because there's quite a few. Even more so than the Barbarian Quest Pack. There's all these rooms that have a treasure chest and no note at all. So that just means you're supposed to draw a card. But it's kind of silly because it's like, I mean, you really ought to put like a couple potions of healing or a bunch of gold so you can buy some really good stuff. That sort of thing. So it'd be nice to have a clarification to going through these errata. Are the Ancient Staff, Elven Boots, and Elven Chainmail only intended to be used by the elf? The latter, which has no card, even clarifies that it can't be used by a wizard, implying the elf could give it to another hero, or another hero could claim it if the elf leaves it behind by dying. These other cards mention the elf, but don't say may only be used by an elf, as the Elven Bow of Vindication and the Elven Bracers say. Those are specifically only the elf. So, okay, and so then we talked about some other things. So quest 2, now I looked at the Lukapashi's notes. I keep saying Lukapashi's notes. He acquired this cache of notes that he scanned from the 90s that the development team had. And to be clear, Hasbro, Avalon Hill, they have everything. So it's not like we have something that they don't have. They have it all. They have all the assets, so they could easily recreate this stuff if they wanted to, which is great. They're aware of it. So, unpublished, of course, but yeah, they could always publish it. Anyway, so in Quest 2, originally, so this is spoilers, major spoilers here. Originally, so Queen Terralia of the Elven Kingdom in the story. Her sister is Sinestra. Sinestra is in league with Chaos, or in this case, Dread, with Zargon. It is trying to overthrow, presumably, the good queen, Elf Queen, Torellia. She seems kind of mean, kind of suspicious of people, but can you blame her? There's basically a civil war and insurrection. So her, let's see. I'm trying to remember all the family relations. So in the original story, she has a whole bunch of sisters. Torellia does. The eldest sister is Sinestra, and she's the one who's trying to overthrow her with evil. The other sisters are younger, and I think they get killed, actually. You're supposed to find out what happened to them. You find basically their bones inside a treasure chest. It's like, oh, that's pretty dark. And so at the end, you're supposed to carry their remains. It's called Unsacred Ground, because the whole point is you're supposed to bring their remains to sacred ground for burial. So at the end of the quest, you've killed all the monsters, and you're just carrying this treasure chest, and you're rolling one die to move, just like Prince Magnus's gold. So it's very kind of a downer as you're carrying this chest all the way back to the door, to the entrance. But they decided that it was too much of a downer in the notes, and so they changed it and said, well, their attendants and the elven attendants are alive. So you go into the dressing room, you kill the monster, and I guess the attendants are just there. They don't really say what it means. And they're supposed to follow you back to the entrance, back to the door. But it doesn't really say how that works. I mean, do they roll dice? Do they have stats? They don't have any stats. There's no tile represents them. There's no miniature represents them. Are they on your shoulders? Are they little? What is it? Doesn't really say. But since you've killed all the monsters in the quest, I mean, unless they're wandering monsters from searching, it's kind of weird. It's kind of anticlimactic. So I can imagine the quest just ends when you find them. Unless you want to go back to the more macabre version. So anyway, since I haven't seen the inside of the quest book, I don't know what it looks like. What else do we have here? Sorry, folks. Let me should check the chat, see how we're doing here. If you've been listening patiently. Hey, Eudoxio. Hey, Beatles 2001. Yeah. Hey, CMG 44. Yeah, thanks for joining us, everybody. I've just been kind of on a roll here. Yeah, I'm kind of tired too. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm just trying to stay focused here. But no, so what other original expansions from back from the day? So there's Against the Ogre Horde, which was 7 quests, and it was released only in Europe. That's the one that had the 4 different orc sculpts. Or no, what am I saying? Yeah, 4 different orc sculpts. One of them was the same as the one in Mage of the Mirror, but the other 3 were different. So in that one, the Ogre Warriors, they were called, were red. And the other 3 were like dark blue, like midnight blue. And they had different arms and heads. They were interchangeable. There's some versions out there that are gray or black, but they were supposed to be dark blue. And that was the first one in Europe to introduce chaos spells, but they were in the form of these tokens. So, like, your bad guy might have, like, 3 copies of one chaos spell and, like, 2 copies of another, or whatever. 5 copies of 3 different chaos spells. And they were all, like, mentalist powers, like mind powers, psychic powers, whatever you call them. Psionic attacks. Mind Blast, which lets you damage them with your mind. Of course, if it backfired, you got damaged. And there was Mind Lock, where you could, like, freeze them in place. And the other one was Dominate, which lets you control their piece for a turn. This is kind of cool. And in that one, the ogres had variable body points. So sometimes you run into an ogre and you never knew how many he had. He might have 1, he might have 4, or anything in between. So Phoenix's version, he gave him fixed body points. Anyway, it had a lot of tiles. It was a very hard quest book. Then there was Wizards of Morcar, which presumably would be renamed Wizards of Zargon. That one had the 4 dark blue, or navy blue, midnight blue, whatever, evil sorcerers. And each one of them had 6 chaos cards, 6 chaos spells that they would use. and you basically fought each one twice. So it really wasn't that original. It wasn't that interesting. There were only 5 quests, but they were super hard, as from what I can see. And especially if you converted these over to the North American rules, because all of a sudden, a lot, half the monsters would have more than 1 body point. Whereas remember the original European quest packs and game system, most of the monsters only had 1 body point. But the wizards had more and the ogres had more. So there's those 2. And then there's the Dark Company, which was the, whatever you want to call it, 4-board, 13-part mega quest, where you're going to fight traitor knights, traitors to the realm, to the empire. And there's 2 boss characters that have more than 1 body point that you have to destroy. Once you defeat those guys, you win. But there were all these dark warriors, they called them. And they just used the same red mercenary figures. Oh yeah, that's what I forgot. In Wizards of Morcar, there were 12 red mercenaries that had interchangeable weapons. There's 24 weapons. So if they remade that and they were doing like the solid piece miniatures of the mercenaries, there'd probably be 24 mercenaries. But anyway, in Dark Company, all the mercenaries are bad guys. They're called Dark Warriors, and they roll their defense dice, but they each had only 1 body point. But if they rolled even 1 black shield, they would block all your skulls. So they were really hard to kill with weapons. They were easier to kill with magic. And because it's like you're going, like, let's say there's a door on the edge of the board, you cross over, your Zargon is supposed to, or Morcar is supposed to clear the entire board, set up the new board, and you're going through like little sections. So there's a lot of places where it looks like there should be duplicate furniture, but for the most part, there isn't. Unless you use Pass-Through Rock, you're never going to see like those extras and quote unquote run out of furniture. But actually, they did make 2 mistakes. I think there's 2 weapons racks, and there's like 2 cupboards. But I mean, it doesn't really change the quest any. It's just, they kind of screwed up, because it's this poster that folds out and it's all color coded. But yeah, the Dark Company is, especially if you convert it to North American rules, would be one of the hardest, because you think about it, Mage of the Mirror and Frozen Horror both they end with a double quest. So you got 2 quests in a row where you can travel back and forth between different parts of the board. In one of them, it's just kind of like one half, and then the other. The other one, it's like 2 actual different quests. And you have to complete them both, and you can't heal in between. So the Dark Company, you got 4 of those where you can't heal in between or buy stuff in between. But they do kind of balance it out by saying like, oh, you go into this room, this room heals you, or you find something that recharges your spells. I mean, there's different ways that they kind of make it up to you. I think there's even an elixir of life, but it just brings you back with 1 body point. And that's unusual for the European version, because in the European version, remember, you can't stockpile potions. So any treasure potions that you don't use in a quest, you got to return them. And if your character goes to 0 body points, you just die. In the North American version, which the remake is based on, if you die but you've got a healing potion or an unused healing spell and you haven't used your action up that turn, it just kicks in and saves you. And you can find the Elixir of Life and presumably restore a hero that died any time back into the game full strength. So even though the North American rules make it harder, they do give you more chances too. So anyway, what else? Yeah, we're going to get into that other new expansion. We're still talking about Mage of the Mirror here, though. And other clarifications I'd like to see in this. The very first chest you find is unmarked in Quest 1. It should probably contain potions of healing, 1 or 2. Could be another weapon or piece of armor. I've noticed the Barbarian in his solo quest, he gets lots of armor and weapons early in the solo quest. Well, the Elf is given very little. It's almost all just gold, which doesn't help you immediately. Whereas if you find a weapon, you can immediately start using it. Or a potion, you can immediately start using it. If it's gold, you got to survive the quest, then you can buy stuff. So they give the Elf a lot of gold, not a lot of equipment. Of course, if you find equipment you don't want, you can always sell it back for half price. Quest 4 has an empty room just north of where the group starts. It is very likely to face an extreme battle with 20 body points worth of monsters right away. I can change that because they made it clear that the ogres have only 5 body points, not 10. each. I'm just going to put 10 body points worth of monsters right away, forcing them probably to use up most of their healing. Now, normally they give you 2 ogres that attack you, but then there's another room with some other powerful monsters too. Excuse me. So it's still not 100% like fixed, but they would make it a lot more survivable. Okay, just had to make that correction. Okay, so that's quest 4. I would place a treasure chest in this room and put some healing potions or some spell scrolls inside to make the rest of the quest more survivable. Have the weapons rack contain something more than broken pieces, perhaps another equipment pick, at least for the first hero searches. I mean, who wants to find a weapons rack only to find that it's broken and nothing can be used? Or who wants to find a treasure chest and the note says the treasure chest is empty and that's it? I mean, it's a tease, but come on. In these quests, I think you need everything. You can have an empty chest and then just have another chest that's real somewhere else. Quest 7 features a heavily guarded but unmarked treasure chest once again. It should contain another elixir of life, a couple of healing potions, or spell scrolls after a massive fight like this. See, that's the thing. You don't have to put just one thing in a chest, too. I mean, I think the most I've ever seen is like 3 things. So it could be a pile of gold, a short sword, and a potion of healing. You know, whatever. 2 potions of healing, a spell scroll, and a bunch of gold. I guess that's 4 items. Okay. Quest 9. Clarify that Sinestra has to flee, taking at least 3 turns from her start into the room to the northeast to be able to use reanimation spell. Since there are no undead to raise anywhere else other than the room with the stairs, which is even farther away. If the secret door was never opened, allow Sinestra to be able to open it to bring undead into the fight. So that's the thing. You've got your boss and its character, and it's like, oh, she's got a spell. It can revive undead monsters that have been killed, but they gotta have died in that room. She's got to be in the room where they were defeated. Well, the room where they were defeated is several rooms away, so she's got to like run to that room, assuming she can get there, and revive them. Of course, the heroes don't necessarily know that ahead of time. So it's like, why is she running away? Oh, she's running over to that room. All of a sudden, there's a bunch of skeletons and stuff to fight. So anyway. But if you give Zargon a heads up, like that's how you're supposed to do it. Otherwise, it's like, oh, I've got this spell that I can't use. That's kind of dumb. Just to scare the heroes. Because some Zargons like to tell the heroes, okay, I've got all these abilities. Or just spring it on them. Okay, and my last suggestion here is clarify whether the Elven Cloak of Passage, the treasure card, is meant to allow a hero trapped inside Solid Rock to escape. Or if he still dies, if he just ends his movement there, but has another use of the cloak left. Normally, if you end your movement inside Solid Rock, so those gray shaded areas in the map, you're just trapped forever. You can't get out. Now, you'd think that the character would know he's inside Solid Rock, so as Zargon, I would just say, oh, by the way, you're inside Solid Rock right now. It's like, oh, crap, you know, I'll just move him out of there. In the companion app, like, you have to keep your finger or your mouse there to, like you're moving into the room with the rock. Now you're moving out of it. Okay, you're safe. But if you move in, even though you've got movement left, it's considered, oh, you stopped your movement, so you're dead instantly. It's like, well, I had squares left. Maybe I'd take them out of there. So how forgiving you want to be is up to you. But let's say you use the Cloak of Passage, you move in there and you just stop. Like, are you trapped forever? Or, well, I could use the cloak 2 more times. Like, oh, I come right back out of the wall. So I think they probably intended it to say you still get trapped. Because it's like you ended your turn. You're trapped, you're dead. But maybe the person with the cloak would think, oh, I'm fine. And then it's like, no, you're not, you're dead. Oh, okay, well then I wanted to get out of there. Nope, no take backs, you can't do it. Alright, so that was the last thing. So that's the Mage of the Mirror. So nice to get some more details on it. Again, I don't like to pre-order stuff. I'd rather order it. Now people have been speculating, well, is there going to be any chance that like Amazon or whatever will ship it early? And people are saying no, they probably slapped them on the wrist and said, you know, don't ship it until we tell you to ship it. But February, it's not bad. Okay, So this other thing, this is a joke. My Little Pony, Hasbro, Avalon Hill, Hero Quest, The Return of the Witch Lord, Adventure Pack, Dungeon Crawler game from 14 years, Hero Quest, base game required, multicolored, one size, bunch of numbers, German. Visit the My Little Pony store. So this is somebody's idea of a joke. Because this is obviously just Die Rückkehr des Hexenlords Adventure Pack. In my terrible German pronunciation of Hero Quest. Yeah, 4280. I don't think it has My Little Pony in it. But yeah, joking crossover. Because Hasbro can do it, right? Let's just check the... just check in the Discord to see if we missed anything. Any more rumors? Yeah, so back to the original question. Against the Ogre Horde, Wizards of Morkar, The Dark Company. Those are all 3 European exclusives. And when it comes to quest packs, the only other thing that was released was the Adventure Design Kit. And all that was 5 blank quests and a couple pages of suggestions on like how to write your own quests. A bunch of stickers of like all the different map icons that you're supposed to peel off and like stick on those 5 quests. And then they gave you a new pad of character sheets, which I want to say there was like 80 of them. And they were like, not like the small character sheets, but actually like the size of like a full page of the manual. So they were very large. So you could, write a lot of stuff on there. So it was pretty cool. And they had a cool design. But that was the Adventure Design Kit. And on the funny thing was, on the back of the Adventure Design Kit, on the box, there was like an almost finished quest. Like they had a quest map and they had notes, and it was called A Plague of Zombies. And so on Phoenix's website, and I'm sure some other fans did this earlier, they copied what was on the back of the box and they just finished it and said, okay, this is the storyline. This is the Plague of Zombies. So it's like an official quest, but it's really just a sample. It's kind of like making a quest out of the quest they show on the back of the Hero Quest game system box. I mean, that's not a real quest. It's just they just set the pieces up and pose the actors, the kids, playing it. But there's no story. It's just you just make it up. But still, you could make a quest out of it if you wanted to. Maybe a couple of things you'd have to fix, because I think they use too many doors and have a couple rooms that go nowhere. But when you think about it, the Frozen Horror had too many doors and a couple of quests. You have to reuse doors. Okay. All right. The other thing is, the other big news. So this new expansion, which we've been calling the Night Quest Pack, that's not an official title. Apparently we have part of an official title. It's called Rise of the Dread. And I don't think Rise of the Dread is the entire title. It's the Dread something. The Dread Knights, the Dread Host, the Dread Realm, the Dread Army, the Dread Castle, the Dread Lords, the Dread what? Who knows? Rise of the Chaos God from Japanese Quest Pack? I doubt it, but I mean, at this point, could be anything. Anyway, so that is I'm guessing this is going to be 2024. We don't know for sure. But, so this was from Twitter, which I guess Elon Musk bought it again, or bought it for real this time. So I don't know how that's going to change anything, but in the news, just side note. However you feel about that. Okay. Zargon says, I've heard the king is gathering an army of armored fighters, but they are nothing compared to my Dread Warriors. Okay, so maybe Rise of the Dread Warriors? So what would it be, an origin story for the Dread Warriors? Or are these like the Doom Guard? Are these new ones? But anyway, this was the Twitter picture. I mean, this is old stuff. We've seen this already. And Carmine thought he'd be cute, and he was, by having this picture of Craig Van Ness. And originally it was the Frozen Horror in the background, and that was the teaser. But obviously they edited it and put this new box cover there. Elvira and several other people noticed it, commented on it, and the rest is history. And we tried to zoom in on it, and of course we had the bigger picture. We speculated a lot about this, but is it Rise of the Dread Warriors? If so, how come there's no Dread Warriors in this picture? Now, I think Amalgamash was saying, well, maybe they're fighting this guy in the center. But then if so, who are these other guys? It looks like everybody's just kind of swinging in every direction. So who knows? Is it a confusion spell? Is this bad guy controlling everybody? What's happening? Nobody knows. But there was this picture that was posted on Reddit. Let's go to it. It's not fake. Okay, so we got this big, huge picture. So this convention or meeting or presentation, tfw2005.com, I guess is where it comes from. So I don't know who these people are, but it looks like some kind of panel for Avalon Hill. And it's all darkened, so they're in a conference room. They got this big, huge screen, and they've got the game system behind them, and then they got the Frozen Horror, Mage of the Mirror, and then the new one, Rise of the Dread. Rise of the Dread. And then over here, Risk, Shadow Forces, and Risk Strike. So there's obviously more work going on. But if they imagine, okay, this is what's already out, this just came out, this is coming out, this is coming out. All kinds of speculation. So another person posted a close-up, but you can't really, it's really hard. It says Rise of the Dread. It could be just Rise of the Dread, or it could be Rise of the Dread Warriors or something else. There's room for more of the text, but it's hidden behind this other box. So pretty hard to see. Enhance, zoom, enhance, zoom. Just like the movies, right? Rise of the Dread Knight sounds well. It could be a remake of classic Dark Company. Yeah, and Carmine clarified that it is not a remake of any Legacy HeroQuest product. So not the Dark Company, sadly, but probably something much more. The other thing is, what if it's just like it's completely original, but it's inspired by, like, maybe it really is a 4-board quest and it's just a different way of doing it. I mean, it could be anything. It could be anything. We have no way of knowing what it is until they leak more stuff. So let's look at the pre-order page. Let's actually go back to the... So they have all this stuff now on Hasbro Pulse. This is not to promote them, and just this is where we get our info. Exclusives. Yeah, we want this to be retail, please. Okay, so you got the brands. You got Avalon Hill. View all Avalon Hill. Yeah, they consider HeroQuest a brand now. So they're not just, it's not a one-off. That guy was cool. Okay. Fan favorites. So the Rogue of Elethorn, $16.99. Let's see if that still has the same stuff. Because we now have found out everything about the Rogue of Elethorn. So it's still for pre-order. Still showing December 1st, but people in Australia have gotten it already. So as of the 1st of October. Oh yeah, that was the other thing. In this new storyline, the Rogue Heir of Elethorn is supposed to be, he's the nephew, he's the prince, the Elven prince. He's the nephew of Sinestra. And I guess with the female, it'd be the niece of Sinestra. So, and I think in the original notes they said that the Elf Kingdom was a matriarchy, so only the women inherited. But I mean, they don't necessarily have to honor that story if that's true. So does that mean that he was kicked out because he was male, or they just didn't ignore that and say, well, he could be the prince, he could be the next heir? But the only storyline that this elf character is given is this little sheet here. So you might never buy this, you might never use him. It's not like you're playing the Elf Quest pack and you're like, oh, yeah, that's where he fits in. But if you own it, you might think, oh, yeah, let me just think about that and how he could fit into the story. Or maybe they're brother and sister and they're both in there. Maybe they have to fight for the throne. Because as far as I can tell, I mean, by the end, I mean, Terralia is still in power. You defeat Sinestra, spoilers. So I guess the future is what it is, what it will be. whatever it'll be. You write the blank quest and you take out the blank quest and you write your own stuff. Okay, so this new night expansion thing. I think that's all we have for news. Of course, I feel like something else is going to slip through the cracks and we're going to hear about it. Yeah. People were speculating what these creatures are. Are they mermaids? Is this a mermaid? Is this a centaur? Is this like a spider woman or half crab or snake or scorpion person? Is this a genie? Is this a elf genie or ghost? Spectral creatures or something? But I don't see any Chaos Warriors in this picture at all. But is this knight? Is he like a pre-Chaos Warrior? Pre-Dread Warrior? I mean, what are they? Are they just guys in armor that have magical weapons sometimes? What are they? Do they have to go through some special training or process? Because they're not undead. They're just tough guys in armor. Or are they? So anyway, a lot of question marks, a lot of things to speculate about and wonder about. Yeah, so the Rogue Heir, some of the other stores are taking pre-orders. There's a whole bunch of videos on YouTube about this. So let's see. Yeah, so Always Bored, Never Boring did one. Mage of the Mirror pre-orders, so definitely check him out. So yeah, Hasbro Pulse, UK Hasbro Pulse. I want to say like Big Bad Toy Store is taking pre-orders for the Rogue Heir of Elethorn. But yeah, I don't think you're going to get the Rogue Heir of Elethorn early unless you're in Australia, but people are speculating, well, maybe the other ones will give it to you as well. So let's close that up. All right, so I think that's it for news. If anybody else in the chat has anything, hey Elberg, hey Jacer J. Elberg says Rise of the Dread mirrors, 28 mirror bases and cardboard inserts. Hey, there you go. And see, then you can print your own cardboard doors and be just like the classic edition. It's the 2022 Hasbro Investors Day is where that image comes from. Ah, okay. Thank you, Elberg. Appreciate that. Jacer says it has to be more than Dread or nobody does a line left on a title. Yeah, it's true. Rise of the Dread, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point, like lots of them. Or maybe they hadn't thought of it yet. But yeah, there's something on there. Maybe as Rise of the Dread Warriors. I don't know if that sounds that cool, but I remember back when it was Star Wars Episode 2 Attack of the Clones, like nobody could believe it. Even Ewan McGregor was like, no way, that's not the real title. It's like, yep, it sure is. And Carmine has Guess It Right, and he'll confirm the title. Oh, that narrows it down. But see, the thing is, like, it could be anything. It could be anything at all. All right. Okay, so let's go through it. Rise of the Dread Sorcerer. Rise of the Dread Wizard. Rise of the Dread Mage. Rise of the Dread Elves. Rise of the Dread Dwarves. Rise of the Dread Knights. Rise of the Dread Castle. Rise of the Dread Realm. Rise of the Dread Magic. Rise of the Dread Morcar. Maybe. Rise of the Dread Zargon. Rise of the Dread Barbarian. Rise of the Dread Skeleton. Rise of the Dread Undead. Rise of the Dread almost everything you say goes to an ad. Oh, yeah. Hi, Jacer J, and then it goes right to an ad. Morcar existed in the Mirror Realm all this time. Yep. He and Grimdead were working together all along, and we knew all along. Paving the way to against the Ogre Horde, Wizards of Morcar. Yeah, it could be anything, really. I mean, I hope that they release everything. I hope they release all the Mythic tier stuff as retail products in some form or another, whatever they can get away with legally. I hope that the European packs get released. Now, there were a lot of smaller packs They were not like boxed games that existed. So I mentioned already the European Against the Ogre Horde Wizards of Morkar Adventure Design Kit, and Dark Company, which was part of HeroQuest Advanced Quest Edition, Master Edition, whatever. It was just a special boxed version of the game system. But there was also the Marvel Winter Special. So Marvel Comics did a comic book issue, which was devoted to HeroQuest. So it had Revenge of the Weatherman quest in it. It had a bunch of tiles you were supposed to cut out and glue to cardboard or whatever and use. And it had like a comic book. That was the first time I saw evidence that the guy in the red cape with the white beard was supposed to be Mentor. Like, wait a minute, why is Zargon like helping the heroes? It's like, no, it's Mentor. And then they showed Zargon, and he looks like Skeletor, except instead of a skull, his face is just all shadowy. It's like, I don't know if I like that, but anyway. So the Marvel Winter Special was its own thing. It also had, I think, yeah, some more lore stuff in it, like a painting guide. It would have been cool to own back in the day. I think Amalgamash got one because he's buying everything from Classic HeroQuest, and good luck to him. Like I don't have that kind of cash or patience, but if he does, good for him. Hey, he can show it off. Tell us what it's like. So the Marvel Winter Special, and then there was White Dwarf magazine had 2 different issues that had quests in them. I'm forgetting now which ones they were. I want to say was it the Halls of Durangal was one with Skaven. Again, they were like White Dwarf always does. They try to like make it a gateway into Citadel miniatures, buying more miniatures. Like, hey, if you buy these miniatures from our catalog, here's a quest you could use with them. Just saying, like, get you to buy them and paint them. Halls of Durangal, and I forget what the other one was called. I'll think of it in a minute. The Inn of Chaos that a lot of people mention is not an official quest. It never was. It was from 1996, believe it or not. It was from Adventures Unlimited. It was a fanzine, so one of these fan magazines. And it was, kind of cool. But, yeah, so what was the other one? Well, anyway, the Dave Morris novels. So Dave Morris wrote 3 official HeroQuest novels. And the first one's called Fellowship of 4. It just has a story about the 4 heroes and then a choose-your-own-adventure style story at the end. The second book, The Screaming Spectre, was a wizard-focused story. So again, a narrative story, prose, about a wizard, a choose-your-own-adventure style story, and then it actually had Running the Gauntlet, which was a solo quest for the wizard. So there was one quest in there. Using European rules, of course. It was pretty easy. It was basically just guess the riddle and you win. Really simple. But, a little kid would probably be challenged by it. Then there was the third and final HeroQuest official novel. These were all released in the UK and nowhere else. Now they've all been released for free digitally online. You can get them. The author will send them to you if you ask nicely. It's called A Tyrant's Tomb. And that was the Barbarian book. So, you got a prose story about another barbarian, a choose-your-own-adventure style story, and then it's called A Growl of Thunder. And it has kind of an interesting lore story about the barbarian, like your father gets killed, spoilers, and you try to avenge him, and you go on an adventure. But it's a solo quest, and both of those solo quests are interesting because whichever hero you start out as, you find another one to help you. So in the wizard one, you find a barbarian who can help you. In the barbarian one, you can find a wizard who can help you. So it's still realizing that you probably need someone with you. Inn of Chaos. Yeah, I've never played it, but it would be cool. So yeah, the Plague of Zombies, I mean, is it really official? And maybe, I mean, it's just an example, an unfinished sample quest, essentially. So what else was there? Well, if I go to Phoenix, I can tell you the stuff that I'm not remembering. HeroQuest by Phoenix. Oh yeah, The Maze. The Maze was Quest 1 in the 1989 UK original, the Premier Edition. So never released in North America. The idea was they throw the 4 heroes into the 4 corners of the board, and you just have to find the staircase. Whoever leaves the staircase first gets 100 gold, and everybody else gets nothing. And there's no traps. there are secret doors, but there's only orcs to fight. Like, it's an extremely easy quest, and it doesn't build teamwork. It's just competition. It's kind of fun, but it's the first quest, and it was quickly replaced by the trial the following year in both the UK and in North America. So the second edition, if you've got the European Hero Quest and it starts with the trial, that's the second edition, or based on the second edition. Okay, so as you can see there, and Amalgamash has talked about all this, so I'm not covering any new territory with this, but the Eyes of Chaos. See, I think that was a fan one, though. I'm pretty sure. No, maybe I'm wrong. Let's see. Carl Sargent. Just going to look real quick. Nope, that was White Dwarf number 145, 1991. Okay, so that was an official quest. I've never played that one. Halls of Durangal was White Dwarf 134. See, I didn't have a subscription, so I didn't. I mean, it'd be cool to find those magazines. They always say, oh, you can photocopy it, or you can buy another copy of the magazine. There you go. And so there's Plague of Zombies. Now, these other quests that they talk about, the Magic Sleep or the Sleep Wizard, Attack on the Sleep Wizard, the Rescue of the Princess, the Slave City, the Slumbering Monster, or the Sleeping Creature Hunt, whatever you want to call it. These were from Drago Brazil, which was a fanzine, Brazilian fan magazine, so not official. But anyway, what Phoenix has done is he's taken all these quests and kind of tried to give them like a uniform conformity to the North American rules. But the vast majority, well, these Brazilian ones based on the Brazilian version, which I think was closer to the North American version, but all these others are like UK, like EU versions. And other than, I mean, Mage of the Mirror and Frozen Horror and the planned but never released Dwarf and Wizard Quest packs, those were North American exclusives. But all the rest, so Dark Company, Against the Ogre Horde, Wizards of Morcar, those were EU exclusives, European exclusives. And I want to say 89 was when the first edition of HeroQuest came out, and Keller's Keep and Return of the Witchlord all came out that same year in the UK. And Advanced HeroQuest was released by Games Workshop the same year as well. And that was with the modular dungeon, and they wanted you to buy a lot of Citadel miniatures and paint them and add them in. But basically the idea was there was the four heroes, Skaven or Ratmen, and Men-at-Arms. But they actually put rules in there so that you could take anything from the HeroQuest box and put it into Advanced HeroQuest, and there was like rules already to go to incorporate them in. So that's kind of cool. So I'm just saying, if they ever wanted to release Advanced HeroQuest or some version of it, there wasn't just a big box of cardboard, of course. It could be like a cool way to cross over the products. Just like if they wanted to make rules for HeroScape and say, oh yeah, if you want to take your HeroQuest miniatures and throw them in, or vice versa, take your HeroScape stuff and throw it into HeroQuest. Why not? So, yeah, they've pretty much, as far as it goes with the North American sets, I mean, February 1st, they'll have released everything that American kids had or would have wanted back then. But yeah, none of the European exclusives. I was thinking, well, maybe they could release a box that combines Wizards of Morcar and Ogre Horde together, like all the assets are just in one box, and sell it. Because other than doubling the number of mercenaries, there really isn't that much that they'd have to do. And they wouldn't have to change much because other than the body points of the monsters, well, how the falling block traps operate is different. So one thing to keep in mind with the European version, when a falling block trap drops the rock, like, you can use a toolkit, or the dwarf can go back and like fix it so he can get rid of the fallen rock, remove the obstacle, just like he can remove a pit trap after it's been sprung. In the North American version, it's a permanent block. It's a permanent hazard. So you could be cut off from everybody. You'd have to use Pass Through Rock to get through it. So if you play it with the North American rules, these European quests, there's places where you can get stuck. Like you're just in a room. You're not dead. You're just in the room and you can't leave. There's a lot of ways that Zargon could try to resolve that. Say, oh yeah, you searched for treasure and you found an elven cloak of passage, or you found a scroll of pass through rock and now you're safe. Or more realistically, he could just be like, okay, the rock's falling on your head. You could either move forward into the room where there's no escape, or you can move back out of the room. Like, which one do you think you're going to do? Well, obviously going to backtrack. Or just say, yeah, you're trapped forever. Too bad. But I think there's only like 1 or 2 places where it's hard to tell if you're going to be trapped forever. All the other ones, it's obvious. It's like, it's a dead end. Do you move forward into the dead end, or do you move backwards to safety? Like, I'm obviously going to move backwards to safety. Other than that, it's very playable. I played it, at least the 4 or 5 quests. I think we got into the 5th quest of Against the Ogre Horde, so I never finished it. But there's 2 ways you can play. You can either play it just quest by quest normally, or you can do it as a series, such that like you're saying, I can't visit the armory to buy stuff in between. I mean, your stuff recharges, but you can't buy stuff or trade in between. So if you play it like that, you're supposed to start out with 5 large potions that will restore all your lost body points. So, you know, that's a mechanic you could use. Now, the Japanese game system would be a cool thing to release. That's from 91. A lot of people in the HeroQuest world have no idea that thing exists. But thanks to the efforts of various translators, we now have it, and it's being translated into more and more languages. So I would love to see that come out. I'd like to see all of it come out. But yeah, they're doing original stuff to fill in the gaps. Always head back to the stairs. So Eudoxio says, the maze was the first quest I adapted to 21 format. Oh, cool. Yeah, it's an easy one. Feels like a rite of passage. It's a nice competition, a nice icebreaker. Oh yeah, so sorry, I got kind of lost in the weeds here. Jacer says, make Against the Ogre Horde and Wizards of Morcar a flashback quest where Morcar is the Witch Lord. Whoa. Interesting. See, but that's cool, but at the same time, like, I could imagine if they did that, they would upset a lot of people because they'd be like, wait a minute, you're rewriting the quest. Like, you've seen how bent out of shape people can get over small changes that aren't fixes, or even if they are fixes. So if you rewrote the whole thing, I think people would be mad. I mean, as far as I know, Hasbro, Avalon Hill, they have creative freedom. They have the rights to all this stuff. They have all the assets from back in the day. So it's not like they're missing one. Like, oh man, I wish we could do Wizards of Morcar, but we just don't have it. It's like, they have it. They could release it, well, probably not tomorrow, because they'd have to have lead time to print all the stuff and do all the sculptures and everything. But I mean, they could release it in a year or 2 if they wanted. As long as they think it'll make money, why wouldn't they? No. Okay, so Inn of Chaos was fun. Yeah, I'd like to play it sometime. Or Becomes the Witch Lord. Japanese and Brazilian in plastic. Always sit back. Yeah, so yes, that Jacer makes a good point. The Brazilian version of HeroQuest didn't have any plastic miniatures. All the figures were cardboard standees. So they were cool. They had like cool like painted artwork, but they were just 2-dimensional. They were just, you know, like a lot of board games. I mean, not every board game has plastic pieces. Like, I'm pretty sure you can buy Candyland with like plastic gingerbread men, or you can get one that's where it's just, you just fold 2 pieces of cardboard and stick them into a little base, and that's it. So yeah, Japanese system was mostly the same as the European set, but on close inspection you realize, oh, there's a lot of differences. So all of the artifacts are different. I think there's the Talisman of Lore is there, but it works completely differently. It brings dead heroes back to life as opposed to giving you extra mind points. And there's the Wand of Recall, I guess. But the Wand of Recall, instead of letting you use 2 spells at a time, it gives you unlimited use of one element of magic. So you could say the fire spells can be used unlimited. I mean, you could use like Fire Wrath, your next turn use Fire Wrath, the next turn use Fire Wrath. You know, you could just keep doing that. So once you find that, you're going to be really, really OP. And that one actually let you buy healing potions, which is something you couldn't do for a long time, like until many later quest packs in like the North American version. So you can just buy it. The Japanese version also limits the stock of items from the armory by the number of equipment cards. So there's a limited number of healing potions that can be bought at once. That can be out at once. And there's a limit, like the artifacts can be used by different people. So it uses almost all the same artifacts, but they have different values, different creative uses of them. But they do have some interesting things. So there's the frost bow or the ice bow. These are the legendary treasures. There's the flame axe or the fire axe. There's the silver sword or the silver blade. And those are needed to defeat the chaos god, the final boss. Like you have to use those in a certain order and do a certain amount of damage to kill him. So that's a cool thing. Rather than just like you face the Witch Lord and you're like, oh man, I don't have the Spirit Blade. I got the Spirit Blade, I can kill him now. It's like, oh no, you gotta have this right combination of weapons to get him. So, but it's pretty easy. I think there's 2 quests that are like really hard, especially if you're playing by the Japanese rules. There's also a couple magics that they give you, magic spells that don't have cards. Like there's beginner magic. So you get like a healing spell, it only heals 1 body point, but you can just use it as many times as you want. So like every turn you just like heal another body point, heal another body. So you're just sitting there until everybody's full again. And now you go out. And then they give you Holy Flame or healing. But the healing, like you have to roll 4 dice and every white shield you get a body point back. So you might not get any. So you can't rely on it to save you necessarily. But the Japanese game is pretty interesting. I would love to see it come back in some form, just because it's so different. And if you've been used to HeroQuest all these years, you're like, okay, I know what it is. I'm nostalgic about it. I want to play these expansions that I always dreamed about owning but never could afford or never could find. But oh my goodness, there's another 14 quests that are completely new. I think there's 5 of them that are very similar to the other games, but most of the quests in the Japanese pack, the 14 quests, are completely original. Like there's no corollary in any other one. So I just realized I misnamed this. I named it Game Books Reading. I'm sorry about that, everybody. So HeroQuest news. Yeah, sorry about that, everybody. I started this up knowing that, okay, I'm tired. I got to do this. I got to knock this out because I might not have time to do a stream on Friday or Saturday because I'm already booked solid, just about. I was thinking, oh yeah, I can just take my stuff with me, and it's like, oh, but I don't have my laptop. I had this great laptop. I still need to get it fixed. Once I get that, I can go anywhere I want to, and I can stream wherever I want to, just about. But until then, it's going to be really tough to record off-site unless I'm over visiting Strange Bus, then I can do the rantcast. But anything else is going to be a real challenge. So I wouldn't expect, if we can do it, we will, but I wouldn't expect a stream this Friday, unfortunately, and I wouldn't expect a stream this Saturday, unfortunately. But I'll try to make it up to you guys. I'll try to do some extra streams here or there when I can, because I do have some time off this month. It's just that it's not all at once. It's like a few days here, a few days there, and I may be doing other stuff. But I definitely wanted to knock this out. I wanted to talk about the Mage of the Mirror, all that stuff that was released. So thank you, Avalon Hill guys, for releasing that. Thank you, people in the community, Reddit, Facebook, Twitter, Discord, and of course at Avalon Hill for leaking that stuff, releasing it, letting us know what's going on. So yeah, as far as I'm concerned, the Mage of the Mirror, I'm definitely going to buy it. Like, if, let's say they just screw everything up on the inside, like on the cards that we haven't seen or in the quest book, I'll definitely let them know. I'll definitely make my review, and I'll let them know why, how they screwed up. But my theory is that it's going to be very similar to the Frozen Horror in that it's going to be almost exactly the same. If they make any changes, it's going to be for the better. If they make any changes, it's going to be like an addendum, an extra sheet folded up in the box, or just a digital thing. And that would be fine because I think the adjustments they made to the Frozen Horror were almost perfect. Like I feel like there were still a few things they could have done better. Like they could have done the blind trap jump mechanic. They could have made the Polar Warbear just basically an 8 dice attack that you defend against at the end. Like I think that works better. But all the other stuff were pretty much either what I expected or better than my own suggestions. So it's like, yeah, you pretty much fixed it. I mean, they're long quests, they're hard quests, but they're survivable rather than so crushingly difficult that, you know, the little kids are going to give up playing the game after this. So I have faith in them that the Mage of the Mirror ElfQuest pack is worth your $44.99 plus shipping. So I'm definitely going to get it once it becomes an order. But as far as this new one, this Rise of the Dread Princess, Rise of the Dread Prince, Rise of the Dread King, Rise of the Dread Emperor, Rise of the Dread, Rise of the Dread Dragon, Rise of the Dread Vermin, Rise of the Dread Ratmen, Rise of the Dread Lizardmen, Rise of the Dread Beasts, Rise of the Dread Demons, Rise of the Dread Goblins, Rise of the Dread Orcs, Rise of the Dread, what else could it be? Dread Company, like Dark Company, Rise of the Dread Company, maybe. Rise of the Dread Guards, Rise of the Dread Hordes, Rise of the Dread Army, Rise of the Dread Legion, Rise of the Dread Legion, Rise of the Dread Battalion, Rise of the Dread Navy. No, probably not. Rise of the Dread Ghosts, Rise of the Dread Spirits. Maybe. Rise of the Dread Treasure? Nah. Rise of the Dread Gold, Rise of the Dread Jewels, Rise of the Dread Sword. Maybe there's an artifact there. Rise of the Dread Helmet, Rise of the Dread Armor, Rise of the Dread Cape, Rise of the Dread Magic, Rise of the Dread Spells, Rise of the Dread Sorcery, Rise of the Dread Witchery, Rise of the Dread Curse, Rise of the Dread, Host that was kind of a cool one. Rise of the Dread Legion, Rise of the Dread Squad, Rise of the Dread Squad, Rise of the Dread Judge, I am the law, Rise of the Dread Lord, like Captain Power, no. Rise of the Dread Region, Rise of the Dread Shadow, Rise of the Dread Darkness, Rise of the Dread Fire. Come on, which one is it? I guess he's not in here. Dread Army. Yep, an army of dread. See, you think about Rise of the Dread, Undead Fred, Red Dead Redemption. Yep, Dread Redemption. Yep, thanks Elberg. Thanks Eudoxio. Yeah, those are good ones. Let's see. Rise of the Dread Blade. Rise of the Dread Axe. Rise of the Dread Bow. Man, you could just skip like the last part of this video because it's just me guessing. Like Rise of the Dread something. Rise of the Dread blank. Rise of the Dread fanboys. Rise of the Dread guessing game. Rise of the Dread Discord. Rise of the Dread. Unless it's just some like really out of place word that would never be part of a simple game designed for 9-10-year-olds in the 80s. Because it is a new product, but are they going to make it like a modernized HeroQuest, or is it going to be echoing the type of game that you would have bought in 89, 90, 91, 92? Rise of the Dead Princess, Rise of the Dead Prince, Rise of the Dread King, Rise of the Dread Queen, Rise of the Dread Duke, Rise of the Dread Count, Rise of the Dread Baron, Rise of the Dread Horse. No, probably not. Rise of the Dread Ponies. Could very well be a character name, the big baddie, so we may not be able to guess it. Yeah. Rise of the Dread Jim. Rise of the Dread Steve. Rise of the Dread GM. Rise of the Dread Dungeon. Rise of the Dread Door. Rise of the Dread Vortex. Rise of the Dread Portal. Rise of the Dread Tempest. Rise of the Dread Fire. Rise of the Dread Conquest. Now, Rise of the Dread Gauntlet. Rise of the Dread Peasant. Yes. Rise of the Dread Brew. Rise of the Dread Tavern. Rise of the Dread Inn. See? It's going to be Joe Manganiello's quest pack, like crammed in there somehow. They gave him free beer for a year, and he said, "Sure, let's do it. Let's make it happen." Doesn't have to be an exclusive. Rise of the Dread. Rise of the Dread Harvest. Rise of the Dread Forest. Rise of the Dread Cavern. Rise of the Dread. So what? But what is it? What is the Dread? It could be a character, yes. It could be an entity, a being. It could be a group of beings. It could be like a nation. It could be a type of magic. It could be an artifact. You know, thinking like Lord of the Rings, like the ring has a life of its own. Could be something like that. I mean, there's a lot of Lord of the Rings connections anyway. Rise of the Dread. Just Rise of the Dread. That's the title. But then, like you said, yeah, why would it be off-center? Rise of the Dread. Rise of the Dread. The dread of dreadfulness. Halfway through the Prophecy of Telor, you see the rise of Felmarak. Yeah, good point. Ah, I see what you're going there, Elberg. So, if it's a character that we've heard of before, that would be easy to guess. So the rise of Skalmar. Hey, Skalmar's back. Or how he came to power. The rise of Sir Ragnar. The rise of Sir Manfred. The rise of Manfred. That's kind of a cool title. Let's see. The rise of the Bard. The Dread Bard. Rise of the Dread Bard. Think about it. Rise of the Dread Skalmar. Rise of the Dread Pirate Roberts. The Dread Spirit Mellar. Elberg may have guessed it. But how likely is it that we would have two versions of the same story? Like, that almost assumes that somehow you can't re-release that mythic tier stuff, so you've got to like repurpose it some other way. But see, that's the thing. I mean, Encarmine was very clear. It's like this is new. But yeah, if that's the thing, are we considering the exclusive stuff that was in the mythic tier to be old? Like, if it was, if they put the Knight Hero in there, would that be new or old? Because it was already released, it's just that a lot of people didn't get to buy it. If it's a Prophecy of Telor, well, the people that pledged got it. It was an official product that, I mean, that was only 2 years ago that it came out. But, I mean, there's millions of HeroQuest fans, and only a few thousand of them got it. Crypt of Perpetual Darkness, Rise of the Dread Crypt, Rise of the Dread Dragon, you know, like that. I'm just stating reference to how they've used names in older quests. Yeah. Well, here's another thing. What if it's not even... I mean, it probably is a completely original story that we've never heard of, and it's all compacted in there. They've created a quest pack along the same lines of what we've seen, but it's all new material. So new tiles, new spells, new figures, new quests. Maybe there's a knight in there, maybe there isn't. Might be a Guardian Knight hero, might be a mercenary, might be something completely original, might be an NPC for all we know. But what they could do is, what if it's just a grab bag of stuff? Oh, but that wouldn't be true because it's new material. So, because they could just take all these small quests, like the Dave Morris quests, they could take the Marvel Winter Special quest, they could take Um, the Plague of Zombies. The Halls of Durangal and the Eyes of Chaos. They could just, and the Maze. They could just throw that all into one book in one box and release it. And you could say, well, technically it's new because this combination of stuff has never been released like this before, and they've tweaked the rules. But if he said no, it's new, it's original, then that's not what it is. It's not the Dark Company. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's kind of like when people were trying to guess Star Wars titles. Like, nobody guessed The Phantom Menace. Nobody guessed Attack of the Clones. Revenge of the Sith, I mean, they pretty much figured that out because it's like Revenge of the Jedi, Return of the Jedi. But it doesn't have to be exactly the same format. It could be something different. There's no rule that's stopping them from doing whatever they want. I mean, The Frozen Horror, there's no of in there. Mage of the Mirror, okay, sure. But like the Barbarian Quest pack was originally going to be called Barbarian Blades. Like, where do you get that from? Or the Quest for the Elven Kingdom, or the Rescue of the Elven Kingdom. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I guess we just won't know until somebody shows the other edge of that box, or just blurts it out. Just guesses. Spend all day guessing. Rise of the Dread Pizza. Rise of the Dread Mushrooms. Rise of the Dread Pineapples. Yeah. Rise of the Dread Fruit. But yeah, if it's the name of a character, go through every character that could possibly be. Just someone out there is going to write a program to crunch, like to brute force it, like guess all the combinations. Well, Castle of Dread, Bastion of Chaos, the Dread, or the Cold Halls. I mean, there's all these names. Yeah, there's so many names of characters and quests. Could be a lot of different things. Well, I feel like, guys, I've kind of run out of steam here. Let me just check and see if there's any more news, any more posts anywhere that shed any light on this. We probably won't figure it out for quite a while. Because I feel like some of the stuff, they make it so hard to guess, we just have to wait until they leak it to us. And then it's like, oh, okay, now we know what it is. Well, duh, because you told me. Or people guess it right away, and so they spend like however much time trying to convince us, well, maybe it's not that. Maybe it's something else, because you want to be surprised, right? But you also want to feel cool, like you came up with something. Okay, so Japanese Hero Quest still being translated. Nothing new there, really. Just kind of the same stuff. Rumor mill. Rise of the Dread Council. Yeah, we're just talking about how different people play their quests on camera. A lot of people like this format where they're all sitting around the table. I feel like they're trying to like duplicate that Critical Role type of thing, where it's like, oh, hey, we are these personalities and we are having a good old time. And it's kind of you're watching it more to see the interplay of the different people at the board rather than the game. Because I figure when we record our games, it's like, if you're not there playing, like, why would you care to watch it later? Just to see what the quest is like. But it's mostly banter among yourselves. Ah, Eudoxio, the maze. Yep. Training quest. Yeah, I like it. Nice. The investor page for Avalon Hill. Spies are everywhere. Rogue Heirs of Avalon. Okay, well, anybody have anything that you want to ask here on the stream? I can spell. Yeah, we've just been chit-chatting away, talking about the latest HeroQuest news. I feel like I've spent quite a bit of time. But yeah, thanks Jacer, thanks Eudoxio, Elberg, and Adriana Barbero. Welcome. As we stare into infinity. So yeah, appreciate you all checking us out. So sorry if we don't get to stream on Friday and Saturday. Just too much going on. But definitely check us out Thursday. Twitch.tv/TheStrangeBus. We'll be doing, hopefully, if all goes well, on location Rantcast, because we didn't get to do it last time. But it's like every other Thursday, so we skipped we skipped one. But we're planning to do it Thursday. It should be a lot of fun. A lot to talk about. Well, I'm sure we'll have plenty of topics to cover. The usual media stuff. I mean, Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, and Andor. Like, oh man, or Star Wars. Yeah. And of course, HeroQuest Power Hour. I can't imagine I won't have anything to say, because for all we know, there's going to be even more stuff happening. More blurry photos. All right. Well, if nobody else has anything else to add, I think we're just going to wrap up here. We just check the chat one more time. Yeah, I was really hoping to play HeroQuest last Saturday, but it just wasn't happening. But we did get to do some game book reading. That was fun. And I enjoy the game books. But yeah, I mean, I could try to carry my entire PC. Unfortunately, my new PC is it's big and bulky and heavy, and it's just too much work to like haul it around. I could haul my cameras around, but that assumes that where I'm going has a good enough internet connection, good enough computer to do everything. And even then, I could see myself just like recording something and then just like uploading it later instead of doing it live. Do it live! Yeah. All right. Okay. Well, I think we're just going to call it then. Thanks everybody for watching us, and HeroQuest fans. If you're watching the replay on YouTube, sorry it wasn't live, but I appreciate you watching, supporting us. Thanks for rating, commenting, subscribing, ringing the bell for notifications, all that stuff. And on Twitch, of course, following means a lot. Appreciate it as our group grows and grows. Spreading the word, good word about HeroQuest fans, and for people who subscribe, or gift subs, even better. That's really awesome. Appreciate the support. And if you happen to have Amazon Prime already, you can use your Prime Gaming to go towards our Twitch channel if you want. But if you've got other people you want to support, I understand, But give us a chance. Put it towards HeroQuest fans. At least once, right? Okay. So I don't think we guessed it, but if we did, any of the groups we pre-pandemic and many pre-critical role. Yeah, you're right about that. And I should be fair to people that do those videos, because even if somebody does something, it's like, oh man, that's so cheesy. Like, nobody cares about that. It's like, you still put a lot of work into it. You still had to put effort. You still had to create those costumes and those graphics and set everything up. You still had to bring those people over. So it's not nothing. I mean, a lot of my videos, you go, oh, gee, it's low effort. It's just a guy sitting there talking. It's like, well, it takes out a lot out of me. So, but it's also fun. So I think if you have a good enough excuse to just make a video, to get your friends together, do a board game, why not? Even if you're the only ones who enjoy it, but there's other people that enjoy it, and maybe they'll watch your video and go, I really like what they did. I'm going to do the same thing. What's wrong with that? You don't have to be the first one to do something and no one else is ever going to do it again. It's like, yeah. So, yeah, I just use Critical Role just because it's popular, but they're not the first and they're not the last. You're absolutely right. So I don't mean to pick on them. But yeah, if I had a bunch of like models and actors like to play my game, I guess I would do it. But if it's just regular people doing it, I mean, you're going to get something out of it, but maybe somebody watching it is not going to be as interested because they'll just go, oh, you're just a regular schlub doing that. Who cares? But if they watch something like that and it gets them into the game, there's more people out there in the community, that's a good thing. Yeah. I mean, I've seen little bits and pieces of the show. Mostly I hear other people talking about it, or like if I go to a game shop, there'll be like a whole shelf of D&D stuff and it all says Critical Role on it. It's like, okay, so it's a brand, you know. But I suppose that's better than something like Big Bang Theory where people go, "Oh my gosh, I can be a nerd. I can just do." It's like it's just a fake show. Whereas at least they're playing a game, right? I don't know if Critical Role is actually scripted. Like, are they really playing it, or are they just pretending like, "Oh, I didn't know that was going to happen," and like they have trick dice? I mean, I don't know. It could be because reality shows are fake. They're scripted and predetermined. You know, it's like professional wrestling. But it might be completely 100% real, and I guess either way, if it entertains people, sure, why not? Gets more people interested in the game, or maybe they just treat it like a soap opera. Love the first season. Yeah. Well, and like anything else, if it gives you suggestions on how to do your stuff, that can be helpful. So you might watch the show and go, I really like what they did here, I'm going to do that. Or I hate that they do this, so I'm going to make sure to not do that in my product. Eudoxio says, I catched a bit live on Pandemic, then I started from start and got up to date in 8 months. Oh, wow. Yeah, I don't like to binge shows. If I do that, I mean, we're talking like over the course of months, I'm going to watch a show, not in one day or over a weekend. That's just too much. Like, I get a headache, I get tired, my eyes are sore. I barely remember the show that I just watched. Like, it feels more like you ran a marathon. Matt Mercer is for me the Tolkien of GMs. Okay. That's one of those guys, I take it. I don't know everybody's. Joe Manganiello is the only person's name I know. I think there's a lot of Matt Mercers in the world. Rise of the Dreadfall. Ooh, Elberg may have gotten it. I don't know. Rise of the Dread Skull. Rise of the Dread Spectre. Rise of the Dread Ghosts. Rise of the Dread. Anything, yeah. The Dread Shadow. Ooh. Rise of the Dread Shadow. Rise of the Dread Sun. Sounds like some Star Wars expanded universe thing. That was Black Sun. Rise of the Dread Eclipse. Rise of the Dread Valley. It's rising because it's like down low. Rise of the Dread Ocean. Rise of the Dread Tide. Got it. No, I don't know. Someone guessed Dread October, and it was stated that was the closest. Dread October? The Hunt for Dread October. Yeah. Rise of the Dread November. Rise of the Dread December. Rise of the Dread Year. He is the GM. He has some awesome world building. Well, that's the thing, though. Does he write it himself, or does he have a team of writers? Does somebody else write it for him? Not to say that that matters, because at the same time, it's October, like Oktoberfest. See, Rise of the Dread Brew, Rise of the Dread Hops, Rise of the Dread Grain, Rise of the Dread Crops. Oktoberfest. Or maybe that's when it's coming out. October 2024. October 2023. Maybe maybe they're really early. I'm just afraid that if they release these too close together, it's going to oversaturate. Like if there's too much Hero Quest, they might dilute the brand and maybe people won't be as interested. Or actually people will get mad because they're like addicted to it. They're like, oh, I have to buy everything, and then there's too much of it and I can't buy it and it's too hard to find. Like that's what people say about Games Workshop. It's like, wow, maybe just accept, this is my opinion, maybe just accept that they're creating something for everyone. And so you're just an individual. You just pick the stuff that you want and then walk away. You don't have to own everything. Like with that attitude, you're never going to be done. You're never going to be happy with that product because you're just going to keep buying it forever, and you're never going to actually get a chance to play it and enjoy it. Instead of just like, okay, here's their catalog. Pick the pieces out that you want to create your custom adventure, and then just go nuts. But right now with HeroQuest, it's small enough that you can own everything and you can play everything. I mean, it's going to take you a long time, especially if you're me. Like one quest takes you a month to play. You've got like 4 dozen quests. Yeah. All right. So I went a little longer than I planned, but you guys were talking. You got me going again. So it's fun. Yeah. All right. Well, I think we'll just kind of wrap things up here. Just check the chat one more time. I got a bunch of stuff to do before this weekend, but it'll be fine. We'll get it all done and then have some fun. But yeah, check us out Thursday for sure. And if by any chance we are able to stream Friday, Saturday, or even Sunday, probably not Sunday, but any of those days, we'll let you know. But yeah, Tuesday and Thursday are kind of like the bonus days. Like if we can get in a stream Tuesday or Thursday, we're doing well. But usually it's going to be Friday, Saturday. Saturday is quest day. That's pretty much what we've decided. But this Saturday is a big question mark because I'm probably going to be elsewhere and I'm probably not going to have all the facilities to be able to do a stream the way I would want to. But nevertheless, we'll be back the following weekend, hopefully. We got several weekends to go. There is one weekend in November I'm going to be camping, so that won't be a HeroQuest stream day. But, well, and then we got the holidays coming up. Thanksgiving, Christmas. So I enjoy streaming, but it's not my full-time job. It's not my whole life. So I hope you enjoy it when it comes around, and I hope you enjoy other people that do their stuff. So Loot, Die, Repeat is streaming, so we could actually raid them if you want. You guys want to do a raid? They're doing Dungeons and Dragons. We were just talking about that, so. Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody. Let's end the stream. Appreciate you joining us here on HeroQuest Fans. Oh, one last thing from Eudoxio. They were first a group of friends playing at home, and even with the success in the updated stage, it still feels a bunch of good story builders playing together and having fun, far from scripted for sure. Okay. Well, that's cool. And if that's what you're selling, that's what you want it to be, right? Even if it's like, you know, they're making a lot of money and all that stuff, it still looks like just people hanging out and having a good time. If that's what people want to see, then that's awesome. Yep. I'm just not that interested, but I'm not a D&D fan, so what do I know? It's probably not made for me, but that's okay. People like what they like. All right. Thanks, everybody. Okay, let's end the stream here, and we'll go ahead and raid Loot, Die, Repeat. See you next time in HeroQuest Fans. Everybody take care.